Alex is 27. He makes $52,000 a year. He's been saving for 3 years. He has $18,000 in the bank. He needs $84,000 just for a down payment on the cheapest house in the city. So he keeps renting. His rent goes up every year, and his savings grow slower than the gap he's trying to close. And every time he gets close, the finish line moves. His dad bought their family house at 27. One income, $9,000 down payment. That $9,000 adjusted for inflation is around $24,000 today. Alex needs 3.5 times more on a salary that, adjusted for the same inflation, is about the same that Dave made in his days. Something happened between Dave and Alex. By the end of this video, you'll understand what that something is. It can make you angry, so if you're not ready for this, just close the video. But there's one thing you'll want to hear first, because for the last decade, someone has been trying to convince you that it's actually your fault. This is Tim Gurner. This man is worth $460 million. He built that fortune in luxury real estate. And a few years ago, he sat down for an interview and said this.
When I was trying to buy my first home, I wasn't buying. Smashed avocados for 19 bucks.
The internet, of course, exploded. But let's take him seriously. Let's do the math. Avocado toast once a week costs you probably $15. That's around $800 a year. Alex needs $84,000 for his down payment. At almost $800 a year, Alex could close this gap in 107 years. 107 years of skipping brunches. The New York Times actually ran this calculation, and their conclusion, even if millennials adopted every single boomer spending habit, everyone, they'd still need over a century to close the gap. But here's the part that makes this actually funny. Tim Gurner, the man who told young people to quit buying avocado, started his own career with a $34,000 loan from his grandfather. He didn't skip brunch, he got family money. I'm not here to dunk on the guy. The avocado argument matters because of what it actually does. It tells young people, this is your problem, this is your fault, your discipline is weak, you cannot buy a house if you continue living like this. And as long as everyone believes that, nobody has to answer the real question, which is, why does Alex need 3.5 times more money than his dad to build the same kind of house? Here's what actually happened. Someone turned the house Alex wants to buy into a financial product. The Federal Reserve created almost $9 trillion out of nothing and handed the most of it to people who already owned things. And then the set of rules like zoning, inheritance and stuff like that quietly made sure this process go up and stay up forever. In 1975, if someone in this neighborhood sold their house, they thought about it kind of like selling a car. You use it, someone else uses it, you don't expect to get rich from it. It's just where you live. Someone between there and now, this completely changed. The house stopped being a place where you just live. It became the most important investment most families would ever make. And once that happened, once millions of homeowners started thinking of their house as an investment, everything else followed automatically. Because here's the thing about an investment. You want it to go up, which means every homeowner in America now has an interest of their home to only get more expensive. So when a developer proposes a new apartment in the neighborhood, they go and they vote no. When a city proposes changing zoning laws, they organize against it. This is called NIMBYism. Not in my backyard. And it's been systematically strangling the American housing supply for almost 50 years, in almost every major city. Here's what it looks like in practice. About 75% of all residential land in American cities is legally zoned for one thing only: a single detached house. In California, it's over 90%. In San Francisco, one of the most expensive cities on earth, it's been illegal to build anything denser than a single family home on most of the city's land since before the moon landing. Economists put a number on that. In San Francisco, the artificial inflation caused by zoning alone adds over $400,000 to the cost of a home. And it's not because the land is worth that. It's because the law says you can't use it. And the result is a gap between how many homes exist in America and how many homes people actually need. The White House estimated the number is 10 million homes. Just think about it. 10 million homes missing. And right into that gap, around 2012, walked a new type of buyer that never existed before. Before 2012, not a single investor in America owned more than 1,000 single-family rental homes. That category of buyer simply didn't exist. Then the financial crisis cratered home prices, and companies with billions in capital went for shopping. One company created by Blackstone, the private equity giant, went from owning 0 homes to 85,000 homes in about a decade. And so when Alex wants to buy a new house, he's not competing against the other normal people like him. He's competing against the companies whose entire business model depends on him not buying a new house for himself. But why did it explode specifically in the last 15 years? The answer is in Washington. And the name I promised you, we're almost there. September 15, 2008. Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy, the largest bankruptcy in American history. The stock market loses $700 billion in a single day. Banks stop trusting each other. The whole system locks up. The Federal Reserve had one move. They dropped interest rates to zero. And then they held them there for 7 years. 7 years of essentially free money, which sounds abstract, until you think of what actually free money means. If you're a bank or a hedge fund or a real estate company with a good credit score, you can borrow billions with almost zero cost for holding. And the obvious thing to do with free money is to buy things that go up in value. So that's what happened. The Fed also started buying bonds directly, trillions of dollars worth, to push even more money into the financial markets. Think of it like this. The normal economy runs on rain. The Fed opened the floodgates of a dam, and everything downstream got soaked. By 2022, they had created almost $9 trillion out of nothing. That number is hard to feel, so let me put it differently. It's more than the entire GDP of every country on Earth except for America and China. And the man who pressed the button and set all of this in motion is Ben Bernanke, chairman of the Federal Reserve from 2006 to 2014. In 2022, Ben received a Nobel Prize in economics for research on banks and financial crisis. The same crisis his own policy helped to inflate, and the same crisis he solved by flooding the system with money that made every asset in America more expensive. I'm not calling him a villain. I'm just saying all the decisions that have been made have a specific name and face. Real people made real decisions that affected your entire life. To be fair, he's a real specialist on the 1929 depression, and all he did was trying to prevent the same collapse of the economic system. But he did what he did, and we have to live with it. Okay, so the prices went up, but the purchasing ability growth wasn't fast enough. And who owned the assets that went up? The top 10% of Americans own almost 90% of all stocks. Boomers owned most of the real estate. So when the Fed flooded the system and everything went up, the people who got rich were almost entirely the people who were already rich. The stock market went up 770% between 2009 and 2024. Your salary went up about 68%. That gap compounding every year is the real reason why your parents are actually becoming more wealthier year over year. And this is the reason why you feel like you're staying in place. They were on the escalator before it even started moving, and then someone removed the escalator. For a brief, strange moment, the era of cheap money almost helped people like Alex too. January 2021, mortgage rates hit 2.65%, the lowest ever recorded. Buying a house was almost accessible again. Alex was saving and he was 2 years short. Then another inflation hit. The Fed panicked and they raised rates 11 times in a row, faster than any point since the 1980s. By late 2023, the 30-year mortgage rate was nearly 8%. Here's what 2 years did. January 2021, $1,417 a month. October 2023, $2,349 a month. Same house, but almost $1,000 more every single month for 30 years. Alex missed the window by 2 years. But here's another part of it that is almost darkly funny. The people who did buy in 2020 and 2021 at those low rates, they're frozen. Because if they sell right now, they have to buy a new house with the new interest rates, which means they will eventually lose the money that they've made during those good times. So they stay and stay and stay. The Federal Housing Finance Agency estimated this pulled 1.7 million homes off the market in a 3-year period. So Alex is now dealing with higher prices, higher rates, and fewer houses available on the market. These are the consequences that come from decisions made by specific people in specific rooms. And the normal people like you and me now have to deal with those consequences. But there are cities where it didn't happen, where someone made different decisions. And these cities look completely different right now. I'll show you them in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the piece of this that actually never gets mentioned. Every major English-speaking city ran the same experiment. Restrict supply, let investors in, watch prices go up. Watch the people who already own get richer, and price out everyone new. One generation built wealth through home ownership, investment returns, and pension system that is designed for long careers. The next generation got student debts, gig economy jobs, and the housing market that priced them out of the same system their parents used to create wealth. And the thing about that disturbs me personally is that it's not just gonna stay like that forever. It compounds. If your parents own a home, they have equity. That equity appreciates, and when you're ready to buy your own place, they can give you a down payment, co-sign your mortgage, or let you live rent-free while you save your money. If your parents rent, none of that exists. 33% of first-time buyers under 35 now need some kind of a gift or help with down payment from their parents. A record 7% use their inheritance to buy their first home last year. So the bank of mom and dad has quietly become one of the most important mortgage lenders in the entire United States. And you either have access to it or you don't. Alex's parents rent. They ain't gonna give him a down payment gift, or they're not gonna co-sign a mortgage with him. So he's going to do it the slow way, without any help. And someone who has access to this help can get this done probably by a decade faster. And that's not a personal failure, that's inheritance, but not the kind that everyone talks about. Okay, the problem is huge and it is global, but it's not like that everywhere else. Remember I told you that there are cities who solved the problem? Let's look at them closer. Austria has been solving this problem since 1922. Over 60% of Vienna's residents live in city-owned or subsidized housing. Not crumbling projects, well-maintained apartments, mixed-income buildings, waiting lists that actually move. The median rent for a two-bedroom there is about €542 a month. In Los Angeles, a comparable apartment runs about $2,800. Viennese residents spend roughly 21% of their income on housing. Angelina spent over 50%. And when other cities sold off their public housing stock in the 90s or 80s, Vienna didn't. They kept building. They never stopped. The program has run for over 100 years. Then there's Tokyo, and this one always shocks people. 13 million people, one of the most populous cities on Earth. Rents have barely moved in a decade, even as the population grew by 1 million. How? They build constantly, aggressively. Japan has a national zoning system with about 12 categories. Housing is allowed in the most of them. If your project meets the specs, it gets approved. Your neighbors can't veto it. Local politics can't kill it. In 2014, Tokyo issued more building permits than the entire state of California. And then Singapore, a tiny city-state, incredibly expensive land, almost no natural resources. 77% of residents live in government-built apartments, and 90% of those residents own their unit. Singapore's overall home ownership rate is 88%, one of the highest on Earth. They did it by treating housing as infrastructure instead of investment. Government builds it, prices it below market and sells it to residents. So they own it and it all creates stability. Vienna, Tokyo and Singapore. 3 different cultures, 3 different political systems, but somehow they've managed to solve this housing problem. The solutions aren't theoretical, they're running right now. So what's missing isn't knowledge or innovation, it's the decision to treat housing like a right and not as an asset class. I want to be straight with you. The way I'd be straight with a friend who called me frustrated about this. The most useful thing that I can offer you is to stop blaming yourself. Don't get me wrong, you still have endless possibilities of creating your own future. But the fact that the system created a bubble around you that you simply cannot exit that easily. Many people think that they don't grind hard enough. And it can be true for some of them, but not for everyone. Many people think that they are not strategic enough. But that's the story the Tim Gurners of the world need you to believe. Because if it's your fault, it means it's not theirs. The actual problem is that the world changes so fast, we are simply not ready to adapt as quickly. When you were young, you were handed a map for the world that doesn't exist anymore. So that's not a character flaw, it's a bad timing, and really almost nobody can do anything about this. Here what I would do in the Alex's position. I think really hard about geography. Price to income ratios vary wildly across the US. Pittsburgh is around 3:1, Cleveland is 2:1. The South Central region has pockets that are genuinely accessible. If you have any flexibility in where you work, remote or otherwise, that flexibility is worth serious money right now. More than almost any of other financial decisions you could make. And the last thing, if your parents own property, don't be ashamed to live there. Just save money. You have such a huge advantage over people who just simply doesn't have that possibility. If it's not available to you, it's not a reflection of your worth or your potential. It's a simply handicapped situation. And the answer to it is not to ignore or pretend that this disadvantage doesn't exist. The answer is to know exactly what you're working against, which after this video you hopefully do. Share this with someone who still thinks it's the avocado. Chances are they're sitting across from you at the Thanksgiving. And thank you for watching this video.